and I PR'd by like 2 minutes. I ran like a 1:14 something. And then I was never the same after that. I ended up with like a torn meniscus. I don't know if it happened that day, but all I know is that I just drove myself into the ground, and I knew that that wasn't the right way to train. And I let myself kind of get carried away.
Welcome to the Bias for Action podcast with your host, Michael Fang. With a PhD in applied physics focusing on quantum computing and a number of years in long-distance running, I hope to give listeners a chance to go behind the scenes of high performers across a wide range of disciplines and perspectives. Uncovering the mindset and habits of those who strive to be the best will help you improve your life and accomplish your goals with actionable advice. On today's episode, we have Victor Martinez, who is both a longtime friend and a marathon training partner. Victor recently ran under 2 hours and 34 minutes at the 2020 Los Angeles Marathon, which placed him 5th out of 22,000 participants. He has also won notable events like the Santa Clarita Marathon and the Bulldog Trail 50K. Victor has also worked with a number of global running brands, including Brooks and Hoka One One. Through his professional and personal work, he has gained a wide range of marketing knowledge and experience in the outdoor performance industry. Always thinking and tinkering, Victor is an endless outlet of creative ideas. You can find Victor at your local Los Angeles running event consuming beer, pizza, and donuts, alongside his partner Jen and their handicapped dog Trisket. Without further ado, let's bring him on. All right, Victor, welcome to the very first episode. How are you doing tonight?
Good, dude. What's up?
I see you got a beer over there. What beer is that?
So I was going to go with something new, but then I figured since it's your first podcast and it's like, all right, let's like keep it basic and like local. So it was like the Golden Road Wolf among weed. So that's like my go-to beer. Nice.
So what's your favorite beer then?
Favorite beer is from San Fernando Brewing, and it's the Grapefruit IPA. So big IPA guy. But that one, it used to be in Whole Foods and like my local craft beer shops, but I can't find it anywhere now. And I remember Jen got me a growler for my birthday from San Fernando Brewery, but now it's like you can't find it anywhere. But that was my favorite beer. Huh. So I've asked the craft beer shop and I've asked Whole Foods, like, I'm like, what's up? Like, why can't you guys bring it in? And they said they'll look into it, but still not on the shelves.
Sounds like it's a hot item. Someone might have to go out there and find it for you.
Well, it's crazy because actually like the whole distribution, I think of like shoes and how shoes get out on the market, the distribution of beer is even, way more difficult. And that's why I think you see brands like Golden Road and like Sufferfest and companies that were, just brands that were like very local, why they allow to be purchased by a bigger brand because distribution is such a big part of it. And it's about trying to get into as many places as you can. So there's so many IPAs in the market. I don't know why we're talking so much about beer, but yeah, there's so many IPAs in the market that they're just like, oh, well, we've had this grapefruit IPA for a while. Let's just rotate it out. But that's one of the things that goes into it.
And so. I always like how you go off on these tangents because I know you like to go really deep into these things and you always have ideas of like, how can you do this better or how can you do it a different way? But maybe let's go all the way back. Let's go back to your childhood because I know you got two brothers, right? Yes. Two older brothers actually that you grew up with and you were always playing sports with them and you'd always try to beat them. And so, how did that shape you in terms of how you approached, your career, your running and just life?
So I have two brothers. One's much older. The other one's 2 years older. So that's the one that I used to try to beat whenever I got the rare chance to do. But my oldest brother was more like a coach, kind of more of a guiding like kind of role figure like that. We didn't compete. My brother that I'm 2 years away, like we used to play all the time against each other and. It would just, if we'd played 100 times, I'd probably beat him once. And I would run in and I would just stop, and he would be like, no, we have to play again. Just because he knew he would beat me, but I would run like, no, I'm done. Like, and I'd go home and just run indoors and tell my mom how I beat him. But then, yeah, in terms of, I guess, of how it affected me, he was so good. Like, he was good at everything. He was good at like, I couldn't wrap my head around how he was always the best one at the park, the best one at school, the one that, like, I wasn't me, I was his brother. It was like, oh, you're Alex's brother. And so it's a pretty cool thing that in childhood sports, I guess, I don't know if it still exists, but they would draft people, or the kids, to pick teams. And when you're siblings, they could freeze you. So if I was his sibling, they would freeze me just to be with, so we were on the same team. But so I was never really chosen. I was always frozen kind of to be with him. And he was always the star, and I was just happily just kind of doing my own thing in the background. Just because I don't know, I wasn't that good. So, but yeah, it just kind of, it does shape you, I guess.
So at what point did you try to use that? Because I'm sure, later on in life, as you discovered running and as you became more competitive, how did you draw from that?
You grow, I don't know, I guess you grow up not believing in yourself, and then you become an adult, and you can't blame other people, right? Like, you can't look to see like, oh, there's only so much you can put on your childhood before you become an adult, and you're just like, no, like, well, what are you going to do about it? So it became a thing where, well, you know what, like, how can I expect somebody to believe in me when I don't believe in myself? Because that's what it was, like, I guess growing up, I didn't believe in myself because I always looked at him as better, and just more talented, and just, but I knew one thing, and it's what I always like say, I was like, well, like, my biggest talent is effort. So I was like, if I could just work hard enough, then that'll help. So, and this is where earlier we were talking about where Jen's like, well, elite athletes do this or elite athletes do that. And then I always I love Rocky movies. I always talk about Rocky movies. And I remember, Rocky's like, well, when he cuts Drago, and then he's just like, well, he's not a machine, he's a man, So then I just started looking at things like, well, it's just like, it's not no one's invincible, right? So it's just like we all bleed, we all bleed, we all sweat, we all suffer. So it's like, all right, well, if we can make this a thing, like we make effort and suffering and that a thing, I can be good at that. Like, I can work as hard as I can't be as fast, or I can't jump as high, or I can't, shoot these crazy shots, but I can make myself work really hard, and suffer. So I was like, all right, well, if I can be good at that, then I can try to be good.
I like how you brought up Rocky. Actually, this is not the first time I've heard you bring up Rocky, and I know you also talk about basketball a lot, and I know you draw a lot of inspiration from basketball, and you also grew up with basketball. So, there's a lot of people who watch basketball, but not everyone, knows how to take that in and use it to their advantage, draw inspiration from movies or sports. How did you figure out how to use that and play it to your advantage?
Well, running is such, it was a big, it was a big challenge to figure out how to enjoy running, because I used to I love basketball. I love basketball. I remember I used to cry, being at home just by myself, knowing that I couldn't play anymore. I've had 3 knee surgeries, 2 on one knee, the other on another knee. And then I think I tore it again, didn't have health insurance, that whole thing. But, I love basketball. And then knowing that I couldn't play, I just remember being so depressed sometimes. And then I go play, and it was like 2 hours just flew by, and I just didn't think about a thing. It was just all about reaction, and you're with teammates, and it's just like the intensity is high, and it was just so much fun. But then when you go run and you're going 2 hours by yourself, and it's just, I mean, you would know being a trail guy, just like out there, just like, oh boy, like what am I gonna do for 2 or 3 hours? Like this is just, there's only so many things you could think about in your head. So I think the basketball thing, I looked at, all right, well, it's a team sport, even though, and again, like running, we don't run together all the time. Jen and I barely run together, but we always, we connect and we talk. So it's like, it's kind of using, I just think of basketball. Basketball is a team sport. So it's taking this individual sport and making it a team thing. It just helps, especially with Strava. I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, these guys already ran. I remember, so I ran 13 miles. What was it? I think this past Sunday. And I show up, and one guy that I grew up with, his name is Danny. He's one of my brother's best friends. He ran 15 miles. Like 15 miles. I didn't even know he was a runner. Now we're like chatting because he's like asking me about what about Garmin watches and stuff. He ran 50. I was like, man, it was just like, I felt like I didn't do enough, but it just helps to have something that, makes you feel, I guess, connected, and makes it more of a team, being like, all right, well, like the Blacklist Saturdays, knowing like, oh my God, it's raining. I'd rather wait till it's not raining anymore. But knowing that you're going to have people there because it's a team, you got to show up, so I don't know, that basketball thing, just the team, it's always about the team. If your team's not doing well, then I don't know, I guess the rest of it doesn't feel as cool.
Yeah. And I know you always put emphasis on the running community and kind of, what people are doing in the running community. And that has to do with a lot of this team concept, right? Because I know, especially, back last year, you had this little post on Instagram where, you kind of brought attention to people that, hey, you're not doing this for the community. You're doing this for yourself. You're doing this for Strava. You're doing it for social media. And that kind of, I know that was directed at certain people, but how do you kind of deal with the fact that running is such an individual sport, and how do you rely on this running community to help you in that way?
Well, that whole thing was, so my biggest thing coming into running, knowing that I didn't come in with the injury. I came in with the injuries. I didn't suffer the injuries while running. So when I graduated from college, I didn't go to my graduation because I didn't think that was a big deal in my eyes. I didn't think that was going to do anything for me. I didn't see the benefit at the time, just the direct benefit. I knew, I was like, well, I'm not going to have a job tomorrow. So I told my mom I don't want to go to my graduation. And, she was just heartbroken because it was her dream to watch one of her sons graduate from college. But when I started getting into running, which I just never thought I would run a marathon, I told her, and I was like, Mom, I'm going to do this marathon in San Francisco. I'd love it if you and my dad came out. And I remember they were at mile 24. I started crying, and then I blew up. I swear that was like the last bit of energy I had. I just blew up so bad after, but just because I got so emotional, because to me that meant something that was special. So the whole, you mentioned like social media thing. I worry about people when you run for different reasons and things that, though I don't mind marketing campaigns, I'm all for it. I love being 4% faster. I love to be 4% lighter at this point, the way I've been eating on this quarantine 15, whatever. But it's once you start talking about injuries and you start using that as a marketing background and campaign, then I do take offense with that, because if I didn't get any faster in my life, I'd be okay as long as I could run for the rest of my life. So I don't think it's a game when people play with a campaign talking about injuries and reducing injuries, when I've been in the industry, knowing that what it takes to make a claim and how you can kind of maneuver your way around claims. And that's something I remember there was a Chicago marathon training program, and I saw a lot of people get hurt. And I told myself, I won't stay quiet if I see this happen again. And so I said what I said, just because I love running, I love running. And I don't want to see people get hurt.
Yeah, so I like how you touched on that injury thing and people getting injured when they subscribe to certain things. You're aware in terms of how I approach any running product that gets marketed towards me and trying to see through the bullshit on that. And I have this term I like to use, snake oil. So how do you filter out what is real and what isn't when everyone's trying to market performance these days?
Well, I think that's why it's important, and that's why I try to get on top of things where the closest thing you can have is word of mouth, right? And somebody you respect saying they like something or they think something works. So all the stats and all the data in the world it's fine and dandy, but when you have somebody you trust say, you know what, dude, this really helped me. I think that goes a long way. So that's why I think people need to be responsible with the things. I understand people have jobs and I think people have careers and things like that, but you have to be responsible in how you support things and how you not making claims. Because a ton of stuff is snake oil. And I mean, I begged you to try other brands for the longest time, even though I was with Hoka for however. I was like, dude, run in other things. Not every shoe is for the right, for that person, and not every brand is for the right person, for that person. But I think at the end of the day, I don't know. I just try to be honest with people, and I always told myself if I felt like I was being a salesman, then I didn't want to do it anymore, because at the end of I want people to be healthy. I want people to enjoy running. And people need to be able to actually respect your point of view and know that you're not trying to BS them when it comes down to a product, whether it's Hypervolt or Normatec or a shoe brand. I love OS First. Does that brand work for everybody? I don't know, but man, their knee sleeve and their patella sleeve, I wear it all the time. And I don't know, it works for me, so I'm able just to say that worked for me. But it doesn't mean that it's going to work for everybody.
Right. And what do you say to those who are, always looking for the next thing that they can try, who are always thinking oh, this shoe or this gear isn't working for me. I want to try something new. What is your process for figuring something out that works or doesn't work? Because I know you have a lot of experience also working in a running store. When someone comes in and say, hey, I want to try something new. I've been using this shoe. How do they make that informed decision to know, what brand to move to or try next?
Well, just thinking of statistics and just science as a data and that type of kind of viewpoint, it's confusing. There's not really a right or wrong answer. We can both, have the same type of foot strike and do the same type of thing, and we might end up liking different shoes. And I honestly think it really comes down to what's the most comfortable. Because people used to focus on overpronating or high arches, you need this, low arches, you need that. They're all the data, it doesn't add up. People are still getting injured, right? There's more runners now than there ever were. People are still getting injured. There's way more technology in shoes, like Everrun, Boost, React. I'd say a Hoka technology, but they don't really do much with the midsole technologies. It's just soft and cushioned, but you get all these different DNA from Brooks, all these crazy technologies. There's so much that people are kind of coming up with, and people are still getting injured. And I think when you look back at things, it's really what's the most comfortable, and it comes down to fit. Does it fit your foot right? And does it feel good? And that's where I think, that's at the end of, that's where you start. That's a starting point. And then as you start to run, you start to learn more. Okay, well, I enjoy when I run in this, or I like this feel more. And then you kind of go from there. But there's not an exact sign. I'd be lying if I said like, hey, I can figure it out for you if you just come in and give me 10 minutes.
Right. Would you recommend, going out and trying as many shoe demos as they can, getting more data points and seeing what they really like and don't like?
Yeah. And that's what I love about running stores and their demo runs. And when I was a rep, I didn't want to stick to just running stores because, my viewpoint's like, I want to go where runners are at. I don't want to just be confined to, the people that come into a running store. It's like, there's runners all over the city. Let's go meet them. But yeah, just try as many shoes as you can. And then you get a feel of what feels good. So within the last week, I tried the Brooks Transcend. I tried the Saucony Guide, which has worked really well. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, just because it's a firmer shoe, and I don't tend to run in shoes like that. But I felt really good. The New Balance 1080. I'm running in everything I can get my hands on, and I'm learning more. I'm like, all right, I like how this feels. I like this bounce. I like my heel feels, cushioned like this. I like the way this shoe flexes. There's just so many little things that you don't know until you run in a shoe. They just, you don't know what's going to work for you until you try things. It's like pizza toppings.
Yeah, you never know until you try, right?
Yeah, you don't. Jalapenos.
So I wanna rewind the clock a little bit. I know we got a little far, but you mentioned San Francisco a few minutes ago, and in your first marathon, and how that was a much more emotional experience in terms of getting your degree. I also know you ran a bit in high school. At what point did you realize that you didn't want to continue running after high school, and you wanted to get serious again and set your goals on something as serious as your very first race after high school?
So high school, yeah, I ran I always say a year and a half, even though it's kind of 2 years. I kind of checked out that back half of the year. It was all short stuff. I remember I did the 800, and that was like the longest thing in the world. I was like, how the heck am I going to do 2 laps around this track at a high intensity, right? So I didn't know about cross country. I wish I would have known about cross country. So anyway, I I wasn't a fan of the coaches. They were football coaches, mainly just kind of, training their football athletes to be in shape. So I didn't really learn much about running and strategy and how I should train. It was just, so I stopped. And then I didn't run in college just because I thought, well, it doesn't matter that I'm good at my high school. Growing up, I just wasn't good at things. Or I was never as good as my brother. So I just thought, yeah, I might be good in this one little, this little pond, but there's no way I'm going to be good at it in a bigger pond. To me, that concept didn't exist. I just wasn't going to be good in a bigger pond. So I didn't try. I'd say it'd be a big regret, except that I've seen so many runners that ran in college that get burned out, and all I want to do is be this old guy still running that's like just having fun. So if that's the trade-off, if maybe I would have ran in college and I'm going to be burned out, or I'm going to just maybe never be as fast as I could have, but I'm going to run till I'm 80, and just be this dude that's just like always like, in the short shorts, just getting out there no matter what, because I just enjoy it. I'll take that one. So that's the high school situation. I don't know what was the other part.
Oh, and in terms of, what made you decide to go back into running and decide to run your first, longer race?
Well, so it was funny. So I started helping out with SRLA, and then my friend, she invited me to do the hot chocolate 15K, and we went out. It was more, I was like, what is this? What's a 15K? First of all, like, what are Ks? I don't know. But, it showed up, and there was like music, and there's chocolate, and everyone's excited. And I was just like, what is this world? I remember, Turkey trots. Oh my God, turkey trots. I used to play football on Thanksgiving, order pizza in the morning, play football, drink some beers. I was like, turkey trots, like, what is this? That people go meet up and gobble and like they go run a 10K or 5K or even a half marathon, a Dana Point or whatever. To me, that world didn't exist. But the second I got introduced to it, man, the energy down there, it's just electric, So I got hooked. So right after that first race, it was, all right, well, what's a half marathon? I was like 13.1. I was like, all right, let's go do that, and then you just get hooked because you just want to improve and do more.
So when you ran that 15K, were you happy with your time, and what made you, try to improve on that?
Yeah, I finished. I was super happy with my time. I didn't know what a good time was. I mean, I don't know if that still exists anyway. Now, like, it's just you finish, you get the most out of your body that you can. And I was wrecked. I just know I was wrecked and I finished. And we got to go eat pizza and have beers. And I'm like, this is fun. Going to the gym and lifting weights and doing the elliptical. I don't leave wanting to have a beer and pizza and burgers and stuff. So I was like, all right, this is fun. So no, it was, that first race, it was a ton of fun. And
did you end up training at all for that race, or did you just kind of go in with nothing?
Yeah, no, that one didn't really have training. I told myself I would train for the half marathon, but again, I didn't really know how to train. So it was just a lot of the same thing, elliptical, trying to run here and there. And that was the thing that I realized off the bat. I couldn't train like the way I used to read in books and in articles. I couldn't train that way because my knees wouldn't let me. So they flared up. I'd end up with liquid in my knees. They'd get swollen. I get pain. I remember my first 20 miler, I stopped at mile 19 because it was a red light, and then I just couldn't get going again. So I literally had to walk home because my knee just wouldn't work with me again. So, I've told you this, but that's where I started using the elliptical. Let me use the elliptical for an hour and then let me go run for an hour, or how do you cheat the system? How do you figure out ways around, these things that, these challenge, it's just a challenge, right? At that point, it's just like, how do you figure out how to work around that? So.
Yeah. And you told me you've also had multiple knee surgeries. So, and were these knee surgeries after the first 15K you did?
No.
It was before?
Yeah. So I didn't do my first race till I was 27 or 28. That was probably, it was 2012. I was 27 or 28. My first surgery was probably when I was 20. Then I probably lasted a year and a half. Then every other year I had a surgery. So it was 20, probably 22, and then 24. I'm just guessing, but it was that type of a situation. So yeah, no, these things were, that's why I didn't run. Heck no, if I could have realized this sooner, I would have jumped on it.
So, I mean, you've had all these surgeries. At what point did you realize hey, I can do this thing. I can run a 15K.
I mean, you don't know until you try, right? So you just tried one day and I was like, man, this hurt. I'm tired. This hurt. And I'm wobbling and I could, I felt like a little waddle on my way back, but it wasn't I couldn't, it didn't feel like my knee was falling apart. I was like, all right, let's try this again. Let's do more of this. And I remember I tried, this is why I fell in love with Hoka. Just cause I remember trying to ramp up my mileage and I just couldn't do it. My knees hurt, everything it just wasn't, my body wasn't cooperating. And the first time I tried Hoka, I was like, oh snap. And then I tried Hokas on a treadmill. And I know people don't like running on treadmills, but I get to read on a treadmill, and I don't know. It's just knock out two birds with one stone. Let me get my run in and read and not feel the impact because of this Hoka treadmill combo. It was perfect. So, I was like, damn, maybe I could get good at this thing.
So you mentioned that you never got injured once you did start running. How did you manage not getting injured and listening to your body while, first off ramping up your mileage, but not only ramping up your mileage, but also increasing your intensity. How did you manage to, keep that all in your bay?
I did get injured,
Oh,
and that's probably what really taught me a big lesson, and that's why I like to be more vocal about training and what people are doing now, because I didn't know, Strava didn't exist back then. A group like, Blacklist and Good Vibes and like these communities didn't exist back then. So I remember I got hurt in 2014, I think. It was 2014. I remember it was the fastest I probably ever felt. Even to this day, it's probably the fastest I ever felt. But I was training with the guy that he just trained fast all the time. He trained fast all the time, and I trained fast with him. And because I wanted to be I was like, this is what fast people do, so I have to do this. And it drove me into the ground. And I remember I did the Mount Wilson trail race. I still remember this day. I got out of bed. I used to do this little check, like, all right, how does my body feel when I get out of bed? And I remember thinking, if people didn't already know that I was going to be there and they weren't expecting me there, I wouldn't show up. I was so beat up. I was wrecked. And I just drove myself into the ground. And then, I did okay that day. I took a big fall, but then I raced either a week or two later, the San Diego rock and roll half marathon. And I PR'd by like 2 minutes. I ran like a 1:14 something. And then I was never the same after that. I ended up with like a torn meniscus. I don't know if it happened that day, sometime, right after, but all I know is that I just drove myself into the ground. And I knew that wasn't the right way to train. And I let myself kind of get carried away, right, by the hype. And this is like before social media takes off, right? So it's like, I just let that hype, just that excitement of it, just kind of take me. And it was a big mistake. So the next time when I got back into running, I just like, I can't let this happen again.
So I know you're a big proponent of keeping your easy days easy and only running hard when you need to. How do you keep that in check? Just not only just self-control, but mentally keeping yourself grounded and then not letting yourself get too carried away. Thinking like, oh, I'm faster now. I can do my easy days faster.
It's just, I don't know. I look at everyone has a purpose, right? So if you look at everyone having its purpose, if you run too hard on your easy days, then are you going to be able to maximize your hard days? So why sacrifice hard days and also running is hard. It's already hard enough as it is. Why am I going to make every day faster than it needs to be? Like if we could just go out and have fun and enjoy, and just have fun, that helps. One of the other thing, like this whole thing, my vision of being an 80-year-old runner, I don't want to burn out. I don't want to get tired of this thing. So let's have fun. Let's go have a beer after. Let's go, have fun after, because I don't want to burn out. And I just feel like if I trained hard all the time, one, I would break down my body and I would burn out my mind. And I don't want to do that. So it's just like, how do we do this? Let's go find cool places to take cool pictures and do fun trails and just have a fun, because we're not getting paid to do this. So it's just like, all right, let's just do enough hard workouts that we get faster at this thing, and let's go enjoy it the rest of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And this also reflects your long-term thinking, thinking about, it doesn't matter where I'm going to be at in 1 year, as you mentioned in your Instagram post. You want to think about where you end up in 3 to 5 years. So obviously that requires, having the right mindset to do it. And part of having the mindset to do it is also, how do you stay motivated? Because, as fun as some days can be, it's not always fun. And so there are days where you just don't want to get out of bed, but if you want to be consistent and have this and keep your fitness up, you have to get out there despite not wanting to. How do you motivate yourself to put in the work every day?
Well, the day-to-day might not be fun, but the process is fun, right? So knowing that, I just sent, this Arnold Schwarzenegger video. I sent it to everybody, like my brother, my mom, like my friends. And he talks about being excited to do another rep all the time because he knew that rep was building towards something else. So when you're tired, it's just, all right, well, I tell people, don't rely on motivation, because motivation is not going to get you to your goals. it's habits, right? Like what habits are we going to build? People don't eat healthy because they're motivated. They eat healthy because they build good habits. People don't become successful because they're just motivated. They build good habits. And because there's only so much motivation that you can, I don't know, latch onto in your day. People have kids and stress and worries. And like, if you have to be motivated all the time to do something, I just wouldn't do it. So knowing that this is a habit, this is something that I've, in Once a Runner, Quentin Cassidy talks about, he had made the decision before everything. So, because if you start making that decision every morning, then you're going to end up with all these like missed days. But if the decision is already made, obviously you want to be healthy. So I listen to my body. If I feel I need a day off or whatever, I'll take it. So I want to be healthy first, but wake up every day that decision is already made. People deal with very stressful situations in life, but they get it done. And I chose to want to run. And if I want to maximize what I can out of it, then I want to wake up and I'm going to run, whether I feel motivated or not, just because I know that this day builds towards the future. It's like going to school. Who the heck wants to go to class and be bored all the time? But that is a requirement to then end up in a better situation. So you do it. So I guess who knows? Education was good.
Yeah. And as you build these habits, you end up with a routine that really works. So when you're deep into your training cycle, what does your morning routine look like to get you started with your day?
Man, I don't know if I have one, because work was my routine was work and just building training around work, right? I used to work in Santa Barbara. So I'm waking up at 4, leaving by 4:30 to get to work by 5:30, 6:30 to 7, run for an hour and then work, and then either, spend the night there, however it was, or drive home for 3 hours. So it just kind of, it is, I don't really have a schedule now that I'm used to. But I just remember it was wake up, get to where I need to get to. So I work and then run. So it was just run in the morning. I love to run in the morning. I don't know that some people run in the evening, in the morning, whatever. I love to run in the morning just because I think it sets a tone for the day. If you could do something that sets, I don't know, because then what if work is super stressful and then you end the day and you're just like, man, I really don't want to go out. Like, I just want to get it. I just want to know that I got that part done. Man, it just puts me in a better mood.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Victor lives in LA and has to drive to Santa Barbara, which is, 100 miles away. Had to, fortunately. And you were still getting in, I want to say, was it 60, 70 miles a week despite all that?
I think I was living in the like high 60s, mid 70s type of range. Yeah.
So, despite all that driving, still getting in, on average 10 miles a day, which is no easy feat.
I mean, you either want it or you don't, right? People deal with worse. I don't know, so it was something I wanted to do. So.
Yeah. And while you were, in the middle of it, I mean, once you kind of got used to it as your new normal, it probably didn't feel like anything out of the ordinary to you. It's just that transition period of getting into the swing of things, probably.
Yeah, and I think that's with everything. Even now, looking at the world now, there's a huge transition period. But I think once it takes, I don't know what the science says about building a habit, but yeah, it's a transition period. But once you build that habit, it was a motivation. It was that habit. I remember sometimes I used to get to Santa Barbara. I used to just walk around Albertsons a little, just so I can like get my hips and not feel so tight and everything. I just used to walk around the aisles just to loosen up a little bit. Go to the bathroom, come back to my car, and then stretch and a little bit more, and then run. But once you build that habit, then it's all good. yeah, I guess it's all about habits.
Yeah, and I mean, on the flip side of that, it's not, you can't always rely on habits. I know a favorite quote that you always like to reference is Mike Tyson, where he says, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And I know that this was a huge driver in how you wanted to approach our speed project journey. So tell me how you kind of apply this quote to other aspects of life. How do you swing it, on so many things, but be confident that it's going to work at the end of the day?
I mean, you have to believe, right? If you don't believe, then the whole thing growing up, you have to start believing, and because then who else is going to believe? So first thing is just believe. So I believe that I can get it done. So then you have to be fluid. So if you have to take a flight in the morning and then run later in the evening, or you have to figure out a different plan. The speed project thing, I kept saying, you kept wanting a plan, and I was like, dude, we're gonna be wrecked, and it becomes how much can I get out of my body at this one time, and that's why we ended up doing mile repeats. Never, you would have never written that in the plan. Hey, on this time and this day, Vic and I are gonna be doing mile repeats
uphill into headwinds.
Yeah, in headwind, in this car, with Janine driving and hopping in and out. Like, we never would have pictured that. So but even though I didn't plan, I didn't plan that specific scenario, I do plan in my mind to have to deal with unexpected things. So you're already prepared mentally that things are gonna get rough, right? So it's like a marathon. Marathon. My favorite marathons, have been my last two because they haven't gone according to plan. Because what are you gonna do when shit gets real, right? Like, that's when you get exposed. Like, how are you gonna react to that situation? And I don't know, to have to grind, like, I don't just think, like, to have to grind through that. It's just like, all right, it shows you how much you can pull. Things aren't going to go well all the time, right? That's a fact. It's just not. Galen Rupp, it didn't work out for a couple of I don't know, was it a year or whatever? He dropped out of whatever race with plantar fasciitis. Scott Fauble struggled in a race. But every runner we've kept track of, both that are famous or just personal, they all struggle. Everybody struggles. So if you expect things to go well all the time, they're not going to go well. But when I hear people talk about like doing things for the wrong reasons, it gets hard because you, at the end of the day, if there's like a well that you have to be able to dig into, you have to be able to do that. So that's why with the speed project, I was just like, dude, let's just see how it goes. And I just know the reason why I reached out to you was like, this dude did 200 milers within a couple of months solo. So I know when shit hits the fan, he's going to be able to figure it out, and that's what we have to do, figure it out through effort. So I don't know.
Right. And I think especially with these distance things and when you have to do these things that just sound so insurmountable, it always helps to break it up. Right. So like, with the speed project, breaking it up into smaller parts, like these mile repeats always helps. In a 100-miler, you're breaking it up into 8 stations and you don't think about the whole thing. You just think about, okay, what's my next stop? What's my next stop? So I wanted to get into this next Instagram post you posted about, where you're working on these 800-meter repeats and you set these little checkpoints out, one at the 400-meter mark and one at the 600-meter mark, and just knowing where you are, helps a lot with completing the whole thing all together. So how do you approach these big problems, and how do you decide how am I going to break this up into smaller pieces that I can handle?
Well, so I view a whole training, cycle as, it's going to be a tedious thing, right? I don't want to peak out in the first month or the second month or whatever. I don't want to be at my best there. The whole point is to build up to a point. If I could already do the things that I should be doing in those first 2 months, then what's the point of the whole 16, 20 weeks of training? I don't know how you compared that thing to an ultra though. To me, that's like a whole different ball game. That's one that I wonder about how you get through aid station to aid station. Cause getting to an aid station or aid station at mile 70 to 75 and comparing that to an 800, that's like, those are worlds apart. We're talking a couple of minutes for the, or whatever, a couple like minute intervals here. And you're talking about having to hike up, 2,000 feet, so that I don't know.
I mean, I beg to differ. If you're going to be, halfway through your 800 meter repeat and you're wondering like, how am I going to hang out to this pace? Then you think to yourself, I'm already halfway through the rep. I can probably hang on for another half of the rep. If anything, I'll try to hang out for the next 200 meters and see how I feel there. It's no different at an aid station, right? You're just like, well, if I've been just trudging along these last 5 miles, I can probably, I'll see in 5 miles if I can just keep trudging along.
But so that's where I respect even, 4-hour marathoners, 5-hour marathoners, so much more than I even put on my, effort and work, because I know that even on my worst day, I'm not going to be out there that long. And this is why I've struggled with going over a 50K. I'm like, how are you supposed to be out there for hours and hours? So if I do a 50 miler or 100 miler or yeah, oh my God, 100 miles, let's say I start feeling good at mile 30. It doesn't matter. It does not matter, because I know that it's not going to last. Right. So then what if oh my God, even at mile 50, oh dang, I feel really good. Like this is, yeah, heck yeah, we're rolling. It doesn't matter. And that's what volunteering at AC and all that stuff has really helped, because I see people that just look really good, and it does not matter, because that's only, if you're talking about halfway and you're going to be running for like 20 hours. So that means you're feeling good at mile 10 and you still need another 10 hours of feeling good. That's just like, what? Like, that's not going to happen. So that's a whole different, I think that's a whole different ball game from, struggling for a couple of minutes at a time and knowing that, oh my God, I'm going to be done in 30 minutes. I can wrap my head around 30 minutes. I can't wrap my head around 10 hours, especially at the high intensity that I would want to, run a 100 miler or whatever. But in terms of what I think people can use to do is, I think too many people get attached to having to hit a goal, right? Or having to hit a time, or it's just, and people end up pulling, or they end up reaching their whole training cycle. They're reaching, they're never quite there. But I'm like, what happens if you just flip that and you just started working from the ground up, and you just look at it as, I'm just going to build. And that was my whole thing with, 400s, 200s, 400s, 600s. I know that I struggle with track workouts. I didn't, run track the way, I'm not an experienced track athlete the way other people are. So I was like, how do I struggle on the track? To me, it's a dead zone. It's like a quicksand out there. So it's like, okay, how do I break this up? And let me be able to build. And if I can build every week, and it becomes, no matter what the outcome is, I did something positive. If I could just keep building positive upon positive upon positive, then that becomes a successful training cycle, instead of feeling like, okay, I need to do 12 400s at this pace, and then I'm dying at the 8th one and I can't hang on. Then I failed, and then I try to do it again, and then I failed again, and then I failed again. And then all of a sudden I'm questioning myself. So instead of going that route, all right, well, why don't I give myself these 16 weeks to build little by little? And if all I can run is this pace for 40 seconds one day, then I'm going to run it for 40 seconds. If I can run it for 60 seconds, but if I can get to the end and just build that, you're just constantly building. So I think that's the main thing with speed, the way I look at it differently than try to, I think too many times training becomes this success failure type of a thing. And it gets tricky. And especially training at the Rose Bowl, God knows how hard it is to hit a workout at the Rose Bowl. But if it's going to teach you toughness, then I'll fail 70% of the time. That's totally fine. But it teaches you how to race in real life. So,
I think also that ties into a lot of, with social media, you get a lot of instant gratification. You're you used to be able to, go on Instagram and see something attractive or see something that you like. And also with Strava and people pausing their watches, they're allowed to deceive themselves and say, hey, I hit this pace for this many miles, when in fact that never happened, right?
And yeah, it's like, are you going to pause for 2 minutes? Do you get to hit pause during a race for 2 minutes? No. Do you get to have somebody on a scooter, giving you water for the whole time? No. I mean, well, awesome if you do, but if you got to practice real situations. So.
Right. I think people are just too caught up in what they can share or make themselves feel good about. But they're always, again, this theme of like, stop thinking about next week's workout or next month's workout. Think about the workouts you want to be doing, 3 to 5 years down the road, and where you want to be in the long term. Because just because you nail that workout 2 weeks out from the race does not mean you're going to have a good race at all.
No, and you hit it right there. I think it helps, especially with races, knowing if you want to be a lifelong runner, it helps take the pressure off of this next race, because there's still a race after that, because we're gonna kind of want to keep doing this. So it's not this like all in, Casino Royale, like chips all in, because there's a next day and we want to keep doing this. So, like you got hurt in San Francisco. You till that morning, you were on the elliptical or the treadmill. I remember going down to the bathroom in the hotel, and you're right there just trying to see, is there a way? But you knew like there's why risk more, or worsening it when there's a tomorrow, and I think it helps.
Yeah. So we're about to reach the end of the session here, unfortunately, but I wanted there to be something that listeners can really use and think about. So I had kind of a call for action to you, and that is, what would you like all runners to start doing or thinking about that could, not only impact themselves in a positive way, but the running community as well, and make this more of a team sport?
Well, that's a tough one. Stop worrying about race times, and just, instead of asking like, what's your next race, or what are you shooting for, be like, what's your favorite route, or what are we going to eat after? Because I think too many people, and this is why I fell in love with trail running. It wasn't about what time you were. It wasn't about what corral you were in. It wasn't whether you qualified for Boston. Like it's just, all of that was like, who cares? I mean, no, it's like, obviously, you want to set goals for yourself and achieve, good, these things, and you want to set bars for yourself so that they matter, but you just don't be consumed by it, right? It's just, if we're talking about being a community, then what's the difference if someone runs a 3-hour marathon, a 4-hour marathon, a 5-hour marathon? Who cares if somebody's never raced or they never ran a marathon? What if they just want to go out for a run and then just hang out afterwards and go to Donut Friend? Like, why does there have to be a race? So I'd be, just worry less about race times and races, and let's just go out and have fun. And then I think, people like, some people are like process oriented, and some people are goal oriented, like whatever, result oriented. But I think if you get the process right, then the result ends up being there at some point or another. So it's just, I think it's worry less about race times and races and things like that, and let's run healthy. Also, I think too many people count miles instead of running for time. I think this is going to be like a little rant that I do, but I think too many people worry about trying to get to a certain mile count, thinking that makes them tough or that matters. You should really, if we ran on a treadmill and I ran for an hour and you ran for an hour and we ended up at different miles, did we really do a different workout? No. We both put in this. If our heart rate was the same, we both put in the same amount of effort. Whether I got 8 miles and you got 7 or 6, or maybe you got 10. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Fable showed up. Or Craig. Let's showed up and he ran more. Maybe if somebody shows up and they get more, did they really do more? No, we all ran for an hour and we all put in the same amount of effort. So it's worry less about miles and more about the time, and don't, it's just to stay healthy. Cause when you run 4 hours for a training run, it's not good.
All right. Coming up to one of the last things on this episode, we're going to go through a quick fire round. So this is going to be the first thing that comes into your head. It doesn't have to be a good answer, but just the first thing that comes to your head. All right. You ready?
All right.
Favorite speed workout?
3 minutes on, 1 minute off.
Go-to running route?
From my house to the Rose Bowl, around the little park and back.
Hardest race so far?
LA 2020, because Jesus, I was in pain.
Solid fuel or liquid fuel?
Liquid.
During your runs, do you prefer music or podcasts?
Music.
Most common running mistake that you see?
Training for miles.
Favorite post-run meal?
Oh, pizza and beer.
Go-to beer?
I gotta go local. I would say Highland Park, because they didn't support the Blacklist run. So Golden Road, even though they're not that local.
Work hard or play hard?
Play hard.
What does your perfect weekend look like?
Running long in the mountains. Yeah, running long in the mountains, coming back, having an awesome meal. And then Jen and Trisket just hanging out. Actually, I know Jen and Trisket hanging out, but I just, we love you guys. So having just everybody.
And finally, this is not a quick fire question. What blog, book, or podcast would you recommend everyone to give a chance or try out?
Hanson's Marathon Method. I love that. That book laid the foundation for me. But if we're talking about podcasts, not running related, The Ringer.
All right. That was...
And this one.
All right. Well, this was the first episode of the Bias for Action podcast. You can find Victor Martinez on Instagram at Behind the Run, or on Strava with his name, along with the beer, pizza, and donut emojis. So be out the lookout for that. All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Victor.
Thanks, dude.